Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something super fascinating, a massive structural shift in global mobility. But it's happening kind of under the radar. We're looking at India's quiet mobility revolution across Africa.
So, when you hear the phrase transportation revolution, what pops into your head? Probably high-speed rail networks in Europe, right? Or maybe you picture massive electric vehicle grids rolling out across North America. We're totally conditioned to look to the West for that next big leap in getting from point A to point B. But what if I told you the absolute most impactful mobility shift happening on the planet right now literally isn't coming from Europe, and it's definitely not coming from America?
Okay, let's dive into this because the answer is actually India. Across booming cities like Nairobi, Lagos, Kampala, and Dar es Salaam, Indian vehicles are completely taking over. And I mean everything, from nimble motorcycles to massive heavy-duty trucks. They are quietly becoming the absolute backbone of daily commerce. Basically, Indian companies are completely reshaping Africa's automotive space and redefining how millions of people get around every single day. So why is this happening? Well, you have to look at the market dynamics, which are totally different from the West. Sure, Africa is this rapidly growing automotive market, but Western car makers are usually hyper-focused on luxury vehicles built for pristine, high-speed highways. That doesn't really work here. The real demand in Africa, it's for absolute rugged durability. Think about it. When you're navigating a dirt road that literally turns into a river of mud during the rainy season, a low-clearance luxury EV isn't just impractical. It's basically a really expensive paperweight. And honestly, this is exactly where Indian manufacturers have a massive natural advantage. See, they already engineer products for their own domestic market in India, which has its own unique infrastructure challenges. So their vehicles are already built to handle low fuel availability and require super simple maintenance. They're literally designed from the ground up to take a beating on poor roads. And just as importantly, they're priced right for budget-sensitive buyers. It's a perfect match for the region's transport hurdles. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly who the major players are and how they've cornered very distinct pieces of the market. You've got Bajaj Auto and TVS Motor Company completely dominating the two-wheeler taxi and cargo space. Then there's Mahindra, stepping in with these incredibly rugged SUVs tailored for farming and rough rural terrain. And for the heavy lifting, Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland supply the massive trucks and buses that keep public transit and, honestly, entire economies moving across the continent. Let's move to and see how this builds, starting right at the street level with the two-wheel revolution. Now, to really grasp this, you've got to know about the Boda Boda. It's basically East Africa's version of a motorcycle taxi service, but calling it just a taxi is a huge understatement. These things are the absolute lifeblood of local logistics. I mean, it is not uncommon at all to see a Boda Boda rider expertly balancing an entire family of four, or maybe a towering, wobbly stack of live chickens, just weaving through crazy urban traffic. They aren't just transport. They are indispensable business tools deeply woven into the local culture.
And you know what's powering almost all of these Boda Bodas? Bajaj and TVS. For local entrepreneurs, these bikes hit the ultimate trifecta. 1. They are highly fuel efficient. 2. They are incredibly easy to repair. You don't need some fancy computer diagnostic tool to fix them. And 3, they're just flat out affordable. For thousands and thousands of riders in Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria, owning one of these two-wheelers isn't just about getting around. It literally represents income, independence, and opportunity. It's a real game changer.
But hey, it's not just happening in the cities. Zooming out a bit, these vehicles are also conquering the rural roads and semi-urban landscapes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer contrast in priorities. When you're out navigating unpaved farming regions, all those delicate parts and complex electronics you find in Western luxury cars, yeah, those are a massive liability. Instead, Indian engineering brings raw practicality to the table. We're talking heavy-duty suspension systems that can take a serious hit, and mechanical designs so wonderfully simple that almost any local mechanic can fix them with basic tools. Out here, having a reliable mechanic and cheap parts matters infinitely more than having a latest touchscreen. Okay, zooming out even further to the macroeconomic level, let's talk about powering cities and trade and how heavy commercial vehicles are stepping in to bridge some really major infrastructure gaps. This is where the heavyweights step in, literally. Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland are basically providing the hardware for entire economies to function. Their buses have become the absolute lifeblood of public transit, moving kids to school and connecting cities. And their trucks? They do the serious heavy lifting. They're hauling agricultural goods straight from the farms to the markets, supplying materials for booming construction projects, and driving cross-border trade in places where the rail or highway networks are, still a work in progress. And that brings us to a really crucial part of this whole story, building local economies. It's about way more than just shipping cars over an ocean.
Right, so this isn't just a basic make it in India, sell it in Africa export deal. These companies are strategically embedding themselves into the local fabric in 3 very deliberate steps. Step 1, they actually set up local assembly plants right there in major hubs like Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Step 2, they partner with local distributors who intimately understand the market. And step 3, which is huge, they actively train local mechanics and technicians. It completely transforms a standard buyer-seller transaction into a long-term partnership built on trust. And because they are building this localized ecosystem, you get this massive economic ripple effect. By assembling locally and training technicians, they are creating tons of regional jobs. Plus, spare parts are suddenly right there when you need them. No one has to wait 3 weeks for a container ship just to get a new brake pad. Ultimately, over time, this entire localized supply chain drives the sticker price of the vehicles down, creating mobility networks that actually sustain themselves. It's incredibly smart. So when you look at the big picture from our source material, the impact really boils down to 4 main pillars. You've got economic empowerment for millions of people who now have a reliable way to earn a living. You have drastically better connectivity linking remote rural farms right into the urban centers. You're seeing faster, more robust business, trade, and supply chains. And finally, just affordable everyday mobility for everyone. It is a textbook example of how raw, practical engineering can literally shift the economic trajectory of an entire region. As Africa continues its phenomenal growth, this partnership is only getting deeper. Indian automakers looked at the landscape and built vehicles for exactly what the continent actually needs. So, the crucial point is this. As this relationship evolves and deepens over the next decade, will Indian automotive companies become the defining mobility force in Africa's future? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.